Hello, and welcome to another edition of On the Hill Media. I'm Fosi Weston, and today my guest from District 15, candidate for delegate, Mr. Arvin Vohra. Mr. Arvin Vohra, how are you doing?
Nice to meet you, Fosi.
Great to meet you. Now, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I've grown up in Maryland. I've lived here all my life. I grew up in Prince George's County. I grew up in Greenbelt. After that, I moved to Bethesda, went to the Landon School. After that, I went to Brown. At Brown, I studied math and economics. After that, I worked at Geico as an actuary, and after that, I founded my own company, Arvin Vohra Education, and we're actually in the classroom of Arvin Vohra Education right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's an extensive resume we know you have. Now, what do you plan to accomplish when elected?
One of my main focuses is education. I mean, that's really one of my primary focuses, but it's certainly not my only focus. If I wanted to talk about what the overall goal is, it's to try to use methods to improve the state that don't require as much money, to really try to be very fiscally conservative, while at the same time, finding solutions to the problem. And whether those problems are environmental or whether those problems are educational, I think there's a lot of solutions that people have overlooked because they don't involve money. When you have a solution that doesn't involve money, nobody's getting some extra benefit from it, so there's no lobbyists, there's no push behind it. I think a lot of those things that we're not considering right now because they don't benefit anybody are really a lot of those the answers to what the state needs right now.
Mm-hmm. Now, we know the economy is something that you know very well. What is your ideas about the small businesses here in your district?
Yeah, I mean, I run a small business, Arvin Vohra Education. I've run this business for the last about 9 years, and I've seen what needs to happen for small businesses to succeed and what doesn't really make as much of a difference. I mean, there's a lot of small business programs through the state, and they're nice, but they don't really accomplish that much. What I say, if you really want to help a small business, stop giving unfair favors to big business. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Whether you're talking about education, I mean, education to me, the big business in education is actually something that most people don't look at as a business at all. It's the public school system. Right now, I mean, when you have, there's something in economics called predatory pricing, right? Mm-hmm. What's predatory pricing means when you have a big company that if there's a small competitor, they'll lower their prices to put that small competitor out of business.
Right.
And that's considered to be illegal. Mm-hmm. Now, what you have with the public school system right now is the extreme of that, where they've lowered their prices down to zero, and it's making it impossible for sort of startup schools, the sort of startup small educational business. It's impossible for them to compete with the public schools. And who lose? And the students are the ones who lose, the students and the parents, because they have less options, they have less choice. I mean, it would be as if the only restaurant in the world is McDonald's and you could go nowhere else. I mean, none of us would benefit from something like that.
Exactly. All right, my next question to you is going to be definitely about our deficit that we have here in Maryland. Mm-hmm. Now, next year, we have to make $1 billion in budget cuts. Mm-hmm. What do you think is going to be the best way to go about the solution for that?
There's two ways you can look at it, right? Mm-hmm. One is kind of looking at the small ticket items and say, look, this is maybe not totally necessary and that's not totally necessary. And that's good to do. I mean, I think we do need to change our litmus test, if you will. I mean, our litmus test right now is this program good? Right. What our litmus test should be is this program absolutely necessary? Now, we can save a lot of money doing that. We can't save the whole pie doing that. Mm-hmm. So we have to really start thinking, are there some outside of the box ways that we can do it? One way is, sacrifice some programs that we like. But that's not the only way. One of the major things that I've talked about in this campaign is the voucher system. Mm-hmm. A voucher system allows the state to save a lot of money because a voucher is usually a lot less than public school tuition. So, for example, if everybody gets a voucher, and just to explain, a voucher is basically like a gift certificate you can use for education. You can use it to go to a public school or a charter school or a private school. And when you have these vouchers, since they're less than the full tuition, you get the choice, right, and you also save a lot of money. And you save, basically almost a half the education. But I mean, by itself, a voucher system, if well designed. And there have been some poorly designed voucher systems done in different states in America right now. Oh, yeah. There have been some very poorly designed vouchers, but a well-designed voucher system, correctly designed one, can actually save the state a lot of money, both in the near term, a small amount, and a huge amount in the long term.
Now, I've seen on your website you talked about socialized medicine. What is your ideas on that?
When we look at the problems with medicine, I mean, one of the biggest problems, I think, was summarized to me by a friend of mine who's a doctor. And here's what he said. He said, Arvin, sometimes I'll write a prescription for a more expensive drug because it has fewer letters. And what he was really trying to say is that there's no incentive in any part of the system at all to control the cost, to reduce costs in any way, not from the patients, not from the doctors. I mean, nobody has any incentive in the system to reduce costs. So for a system to work, for a healthcare system to work, there has to be an incentive for everybody to try to reduce costs, to keep them within some kind of practical range. And one of the, when we talk about universal healthcare, do I want universal healthcare? Absolutely. But there's a right way to do it, and there's an inefficient way to do it. What we're doing right now is an inefficient way to do it. In Maryland, we have the following issue. There's something, actually, we used to be an insurance actuary, so this is kind of close to my heart. There's something called a catastrophe insurance, which is a very high deductible insurance. And what that basically means is this: if you have something routine, doctor's checkup, something small, you just pay for it out of pocket. And if there's something big, that gets covered.
Right.
So what does that do? I mean, right now, when you pay the insurance company, $100, and then they pay for your checkup, what do? They give 85 of those dollars to the doctors, and they keep 15%. That basically is just taking all this routine stuff and putting a 15% markup on it for no reason. But it's more than just a 15% markup, because right now there's no incentive to drive down the cost. I mean, if you really have people paying out of their pocket for these small things like doctor checkup, which they're not hugely burdensome amounts of money. If you have people paying out of their own pocket for these small things, then the doctors, of course, have incentive to drive down the price. Say, I can do a checkup for, instead of $100, I'll do it for 80. Maybe they'll do it for 70, maybe for 60. And then we see happening in medicine what we already have in food. I mean, you don't have to be a millionaire to eat Thai food or French food. I mean, the kind of food choices we have now in America are things that, 20 years ago, in other countries is what kings would dream about. It's unbelievable. And we can have the same thing in medicine at a very low cost if we have the incentive in the system. So when you create a system where everybody can get the most expensive medicine that they can possibly, and of course you want the most expensive thing. I mean, what difference does it make to you? I mean, if you have a choice between a $5 antibiotic and a $5,000 antibiotic, and both of them will work about the same, well, most people are going to choose the more expensive one just out on principle. And that's what we have right now. So really, one of the things that I'd like to do in Maryland specifically, just a very simple solution to a lot of these problems, is make it legal to have the catastrophe insurance. Right now, you can't buy a $10,000 deductible insurance. It's against the law. So if we just change that law, let responsible adults make this contract on their own. I mean, let them say, you're an adult, you can make this contract. It's not a ridiculous contract. It's not an illegal contract. It's not a damaging to the state in any way contract. All it does is it takes a little bit of power out of the hands of insurance companies. It puts power back into the hands of individuals, and it creates an incentive to lower price. And that's what we're lacking in the system right now, the incentive to lower price.
So basically, this is more like an option plan, not something that you'll mandate.
No, it wouldn't be. It's not like I'm saying everybody in the world has to get catastrophe insurance, but if you want catastrophe insurance, you should be allowed to buy it. You shouldn't be forced to buy it, of course, but you should be allowed to buy it. It's ridiculous that you're not allowed to, and the only reason that you're not allowed to is that if you are allowed to, you're taking all this bulk money that right now is just getting sort of filtered through health insurance companies, where they just take 15% of everything, and you'd be taking that away from them. And of course, there are going to be people who are going to oppose something like that.
Now, what about the people who are low income that would love to be on this, but they just can't afford it? How would you be able to get them included in that?
It's really a question of price. I mean, can you drive the price down low enough?
Right.
Now, there will always be levels where no matter how low you bring the price, that somebody might not be able to afford. I mean, you can bring the price down to $5. Maybe somebody doesn't have $5, and there comes a time in our current system, in our current network of laws, and the current way things are done, when maybe the state has to step in. Currently, I don't think that's the long-term solution. I think in the long term, I definitely think in the long term we can do a lot of other things. There's a lot of ways to actually privatize a lot of that. You have one company, for example, Citizen Effect, and here's what they do: they take money from. I mean, they don't take money, and people donate to them money. And you see exactly where your money is going. So what happens? People are now totally willing to donate money to these causes. And I don't think that the idea that everybody in the world is extremely selfish, I don't think that's an accurate view of humanity at all. I think that if we, in the next few years, and when I say long term, I don't mean 50 years, I mean, next 1 or 2 years, we really start to move towards privatized option of it, privatizing charity, having private charities, that focus on this. I think that we're going to be able to pick up a lot of the slack, maybe all the slack, and at that point, the current system is going to be essentially obsolete. There's one other thing when it comes to dealing with the price of medicine, and this one's probably going to be a little bit more controversial. Just to give you the heads up on that. Right now, there's Medicaid. Medicaid steps in when you don't have money to pay for medical care. And in a lot of ways, under our current system, the way things are done right now, I think we need to have some kind of Medicaid. Where I have a disagreement with the way things are done is I think that you have to recognize that charity is charity, and it should be kind of treated like charity.
Right.
Simple example: if you go to